Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name's Tony Ingram. So we're here on Halloween, it turns out, when this is recorded on October 31st. And this is episode 26. Boo! Okay, so today we're going to go all over the place. We're going to go to look at some lingering fall colors. And we'll start right off with Buttermilk Falls State Park. Ooh, up in the air with Bill Hecht, who is a local photographer who likes to get up in a plane and take pictures and share them with everybody, and we're very grateful for that because not very many of us can get these kind of views of our landscape. And this is Buttermilk Falls State Park looking over Inlet Valley just south of Ithaca. And if you look at the right-hand side of the center part, in that dark area there, you can see, well, that's actually, you can't see, that's Buttermilk Falls down in there. There's the falls. And then back, you look at to the left side of that is another gorge, and that's Owl Gorge. It doesn't have any trails in it, so not many people get in there. But I live near there, so I'm fine to that place. So anyway, I went over there yesterday to look at the waterfall, to see what Hurricane Sandy, which is just moving out of the area today, did, whether it put a lot of water in the waterfall. And no, it was, the waterfall was full, brought up to a nice level. But nothing extraordinary, and that's kind of what I expected because the forecast for the rain that we were going to get really wasn't that high, and we didn't get anything like that, which is what we had in early September, about September 8th or 9th in last year, when Tropical Storm Lee came along on the heels of Hurricane Irene, and the Hurricane Irene had saturated the soil, so there was nowhere for the 4 to 5 inches that rain that fell out on Ithaca to go except into our ravines and our gorges to roar towards Keuka Lake. And of course farther south along the Susquehanna and Owego and Binghamton and down in Pennsylvania, they got 2 or 3 times as much rain and had serious flooding. We just had a little bit of trail damage that caused some closure of the upper gorge at Tremont for a while, but and some ripped out some of the walls and stuff in this gorge, but not too bad. And so not a big deal. I went by Ithaca Falls yesterday, and that was looking really nice, but nothing extraordinary. But let's continue to go up in Buttermilk Glen. This is along the Gorge Trail here. This is not yesterday. This was probably a couple of weeks ago. But I was taken by the image of this promontory that actually projects right over the top of the waterfall. And you can see the fence along there, and the trail goes along there. And couple of people walking along the trail on the left you might be able to make out. So my brother, I sent this picture to my brother. He lives in Connecticut, and he said, "Oh, did you crawl out on the lip of the cliff and take a picture down of the waterfalls?" And I said, "No, I didn't do that." But anyway, that would have been quite a picture, but not one that the park ranger would have been happy about. So anyway, here's even earlier. Well, no, it's taken about the same time, I'd say a couple of weeks ago. Walking up there's more water in the gorge now. Although yesterday when I went up on the to the falls to take a picture, the gorge trail was still open. It hadn't hopped the edge of the trail, so the stream hadn't, and so things were kind of normal. But just some scenes. The leaves have fallen off the trees, but they're on the ground, and it creates some interesting effects around the waterfalls and the rocks and so forth. It's very pretty. Yeah. Various ledges and so many waterfalls and pools. This is in the upper part near Pinnacle Rock that many of us are familiar with and has been photographed many times. So Buttermilk Falls, the Gorge Trail still open, and be a good time to go up there. We're going to pop over now to Robert Tremont State Park. This was last week in the cliff rising high up above Lucifer Falls in the upper gorge. And you turn your gaze down just a little bit, and there's the Gorge Trail wrapping itself around the cliff, heading up towards the falls, which would be just below me where I took this picture. And then I walked down to where those people are down there. If you can see them in the lower right there, I went down there and I took this picture of Lucifer Falls. And in fact, to bring that to life, I do have a video. Let's see if we can get that up here, and I'll show you that in a moment. 115 feet high, Lucifer Falls. Amazing place. 100 feet shorter than Teganic, but you can get closer to the falls than you can to Teganic. So now we're going to go back up in the air, and I want you to see if you can figure out where this is. Couple of lakes in it. This is 6 Mile Creek, natural area, and the watershed for the city of Ithaca. The lower, the middle, in the picture in the middle, the lake in there, that's called the lower reservoir. I guess that's called second dam by a lot of people. And then to the upper right, there's another lake. That is the upper reservoir, and that's actually what's used as the city's water supply now. I guess they're going to be redoing a lot of that system soon. Here's we get down in the creek, just downstream to the left, be off this picture here, but maybe just about where the lower left there, we go right down into the gorge along the creek, and the Mulholland Wildflower Preserve portion of 6 Mile Creek natural area. All right, so very nice. There's lingering fall colors. We're going to go now over to, well, let's go up in the air again. And the upper left there is Keuka Lake in this Bill Hecht photograph. And just to the right of that is Fall Creek Gorge. And we'll pop down to Ithaca Falls. This was a picture I showed last week. It's about a week and a half ago. I was there and took some photos and video. And I showed the photos last week, but I didn't show the video. So I'm going to try to get that up for you here. Okay, we'll cue that up for us. Okay, so Ithaca Falls yesterday was quite beautiful. The colors were totally maxed out and a little beyond peak, but definitely impressive. So still worth a pop over there. If there's anything left now. It's going fast. So I went back to Ithaca Falls again less than a week ago. I think it's probably last Friday, which I don't know exactly what day that was, but anyway, the 25th or something, maybe 26th. And I took some more pictures and more videos, so we'll go back to Ithaca Falls. I set up just below the falls there, a little bit closer than I got in that video, and zoomed in a little bit. And looking up the top of the fall, some lingering color. And there were a few fishermen out there, fly fishermen, who were probably going after trout or salmon that were doing a fall run. And then I put my camera down just to look at some of the reflections in the water. You get all kinds of sort of abstract patterns in the water, and I thought that was kind of nice. Yeah. So if you go upstream beyond Ithaca Falls, this is more of Bill Hecht's photographs. The upper gorge, this is, or the upper valley, I guess you could call it a gorge. Yeah, there's sections of gorge up there. This is beyond Cornell. This is out maybe around Sapsucker Woods or even beyond there. Some of the high banks along the stream as it meanders along Fall Creek. And then another shot, Fall Creek at the late afternoon sun and glinting off of the trees. But we're going to go back to to Ithaca Falls, and I've got another video that I made from my little visit the other day. So we'll bring that one up. In the fall, fly fishers try to catch brown trout, salmon, and rainbow trout that have run up from Keuka Lake into Fall Creek below Ithaca Falls. Okay, so that was nice, but now I have to, I had to admit something. I told you a lie last week. Actually, it was just an error about some fall colors and about some maple trees, because last week we went and looked at photos out west of fall colors, and including this shot from Zion National Park, and look down in the lower center there is all those red trees, small red trees, and I said that those are big leafed maples, Acer grandifilum. Well, they're not. They're big tooth maples, and it turns out that there are a couple of species out west. I'm familiar with the big leafed maple, which I'll show you a picture of in a couple of minutes, on the west coast, but in the Great Basin, Colorado Plateau area, Canyon Country, there are big toothed maples, and there's a couple of pictures of them, and they are related to sugar maples, and some people say that they are actually a maybe a subspecies or something. They have different names. Here's some more. Look how red they get. They get red like our sugar maples do sometimes, and some of their names include, well, let's see, let's look at their, we'll get out in a sec. Let's look at their range. So the green splotches there are where they are found. Some in Texas. You can see even little dots down in Mexico, in southwestern New Mexico up through Arizona, and quite a lot, probably most of them in Utah, on the lower left of the Utah map there, which is left of center. And that's where most of the green is in Utah. That's where Zion National Park is, where that picture came from. But this one's down in Texas, and this is the the Lost Maple State Natural Area, or State Park, and those are big tooth maples. So the area that you see in Texas, in the lower part of the map of Texas, that elongated worm, that is the general area where this preserve is. Some of the other names of the big-tooth maple, Acer grandidentatum is the Latin name, but also Sabinal maple, because the Sabina River, I guess it is, or Sabinal River runs through there. Western sugar maple, Uvalde big-tooth maple, canyon maple, southwestern big-tooth maple. Canyon maple is very appropriate because it tends to grow along the streams in the canyons and washes and so forth. And then here is a picture of big-tooth maple leaves that have not turned. And then I'm going to compare that to the big-leafed maple that I was accusing them of being. This is the leaf of the big-leaf maple from the west coast. They grow from California all the way up to just up to southeast Alaska. And those are the ones I've seen when I've been out there. And I was there in November once near San Francisco, and they were turning yellow. I didn't see red ones, so I don't think they turn red. Of course, this is well, not our only maple. There's actually 7 different species of maple that grow in New York State, but this is the one we're most famous for, the sugar maple, Acer saccharum. And of course, it turns red and orange when it's exposed to the sun. So apologize for that error. And this is the range of our sugar maple, really quite widespread in the eastern U.S. An interesting thing to me, I noticed when I look at this map, you know, it goes just up into Canada, covering southern Ontario, southern Quebec, the Maritime provinces, just into western Ontario, and then the rest of the country, there's not much of it. But the sugar maple is the leaf that's on the national flag of Canada. So that says something about the weight of population and maybe politics in Canada. Is the sugar maple, which only occupies, at least square mile wise, a small part of the country, is the national symbol. It's actually much more of its range is in the United States. So that was interesting to me. Okay, so we're now going to travel around. Let's see where we're going to go next here. Look at my schedule. We're going to go to, back up into the sky again with Bill Hecht, and take a look at this view over Ithaca, looking north. And what can we see? If you look, you can see how the lake winds to the north, and for its total of 38 miles. It's the only way you can see the whole length of the lake is from an airplane. And anyway, if you follow the southern part of the lake here, it's sort of a big rectangle that makes a big turn up about 5 or 6 miles up the lake. And straight at the other end of that section, actually on the eastern shore as it bends to the left, there's actually a point of land there, and that is Myers Point. So here's where Bill is flown around on the west shore and looking east, southeast, and there's a point of land that sticks out there. Myers Point, the site of Lansing Town Park, and there's a the left-hand part of Myers Point, you can see as a notch into it, and that's the mouth of Salmon Creek. And if you look to the left, center left, you can see a groove that's angling down. That is the route of Salmon Creek through its gorge and river stream valley towards Myers Point and exits into the lake there. And that's actually one of the larger watersheds that comes into Keuka Lake. Some 1/8 of the water that enters Keuka Lake comes from Salmon Creek. Now this is a summer picture. You can see that the mouth of that creek better on the left there. And then in the middle of the point is the Lansing Town Park Marina and boat launch, and then to the right of that is a private marina and launch and so forth. So very cool. Where do we go next here? So now we're going to go to the western Finger Lakes again. We took a little trip out there in this show last week. We'll get back up on the plane with Bill Hecht. Showed this picture last week of Keuka Lake, or Forked Lake, or Crooked Lake, I guess they used to call it many years ago, but it's for a long time it's been called Keuka Lake, and it has 2 branches to the north. That an east branch on the right and the west branch on the left, and in the middle is Bluff Point. So let's take another look here. This is from way down. This is over the southern end of Keuka Lake. And to the left center, to the bottom end of the lake there, that is the village of Hammondsport. And the lake winds north, and then you can see the two branches splitting around Bluff Point. And let's see what else we got going on here. Here's another view where Bluff Point extends down between the two branches of the lake. Now, why is this a Y-shaped lake? I referred to that last week. It's because once upon a time, millions of years ago, it was a pair of rivers that joined where Bluff Point is now, two forked tributaries that came together and formed a central river that all flowed south down into what's now the Susquehanna. And the glaciers came along during the Ice Age, and they moved through these valleys, moved downstream the valleys, and they gouged out those two river valleys and then joined at Bluff Point. And then when they melted away, had it all gouged out and dammed up and left the lake in that slingshot-shaped form. Now looking obviously over Bluff Point, looking south now towards the southern part of the Y of the lake. Incredible photographs. Thank you, Bill. Now we're going to look over the left branch in the lower right there. That's over the top of the left branch, the village of Branchport down on the bottom. Keuka Lake State Park would be just off the picture to the right in the center. But then up in the upper right is the East Branch, and then beyond that is Seneca Lake, because Keuka Lake is the next lake west from Seneca Lake, which of course is the lake immediately west from Cayuga Lake. So this is two lakes over west of us. Now we're going to go down the West Branch, again looking over Bluff Point's peninsula to the upper portion there is again the East Branch, and then beyond that you can just make out Seneca Lake. So there's almost like three lakes in this picture. And then finally we're going to zoom in to the upper center here. Actually flew in. This wasn't a zoom in. This was actual fly in. And the upper and the northern end of the East Branch. And right in the middle of the picture there, just below the middle of the picture, is Keuka College on the west shore. There's a really beautiful setting. And then up at the end of the lake is the village of Penyan. The water goes out of the lake there. There is a gorge that goes out of there. It's the Keuka outlet that flows over to Seneca Lake. You can't see that in the picture here, but it's about a 10-mile gorge that goes over to Seneca Lake, and that's where all of Keuka Lake's water goes, and eventually makes its way into the northern end of Cayuga Lake, and then into the Seneca River and the Erie Canal. So it has a long ways to go. So, all right, so that was, let's see where we're going to go next here. We went to Keuka Lake. We're going to go over to Canandaigua Lake now. Canandaigua, that's the next lake to the west of Keuka Lake. So we're looking way over, the Canandaigua Lake is way up at the top center there. And we're looking over the valley south of Canandaigua Lake and the village of Naples. So this is the long glacial groove that Canandaigua Lake is in. It's just in the northern part of it. We're going to zoom in a little bit here. Look at that northern part of the lake valley. And you notice that on the left is Canandaigua Lake, and then there's a hill in the middle. And on the right, there is another valley that actually at one time was part of the lake. And it was kind of like Keuka Lake, and they were joined. But now it's a big wetland, and it's High Tor Wildlife Management Area. And it's actually fun to canoe up in there. But that is filled in since the Ice Age. So it's a very interesting landscape. But in the middle of the picture, just above the middle of the picture, is that big hill to the right of Canandaigua Lake there, and to the left of West Valley. And that's a very significant hill. It's called, well, it's called South Hill. And let's see, there's some things to say about that. This was actually a very important place culturally to the Seneca people. And I'm going to do a little, you can still see that hill there, but I'm going to read from some information I have here about that. That's the, well, first of all, the Seneca people call themselves the Onondaga, which means people of the Great Hill. So they call this the Great Hill in English. And it's, I think it's Seneca name. Where is its Seneca name? No. Find that here. Not doing so well here. Anyway, it's Nundawao, something I've got that on here somewhere. Anyway, they're the people of the Great Hill. The name refers to the Seneca belief that they emerged into this world from under South Hill, which is that hill, which is located near Canandaigua Lake in what is now New York State. So every Labor Day weekend, and I've gone to it, the Seneca gather up on South Hill, which is now a preserve, and they build a big bonfire and they beat drums and sing and dance, and anybody can come join them there. And all around Canandaigua Lake, the lakeshore residents put out flares, so there's this big light celebration around Canandaigua Lake, and of course the Seneca or the Onondaga people of the Great Hill are celebrating this belief that they emerged from under the Great Hill. So it's now a land trust preserve, Great Hill Nature Preserve by the Finger Lakes Land Trust. They write, "You want a vigorous hike with panoramic views of one of the Finger Lakes? Come follow the trails along the forested slopes of this lofty high preserve, high above Canandaigua Lake and next to High Tor Wildlife Management Management Area, I should say. Today most people know it as South Hill, but this majestic hill overlooking Canandaigua Lake has collected many names and stories over time." There's the name, Nundawao, the Great Hill, or Whaleback, and Sunnyside. Let's see, the elevation of Canandaigua Lake is like 689 feet above sea level, and the top of the Great Hill, or Nundawao, is nearly 1,900 feet. So that's really quite a bit of relief there, more than 1,000 feet up that steep hill. It's been forested, but it's never been farmed. Okay, so what else am I going to say? The Great Hill Preserve reaches an elevation of nearly 1,900 feet and offers spectacular views. Okay, well, we're going to finish up here with just a couple of other pictures. All right. This is in just some of the last pictures that Bill took. This is Cliffside State Forest that's down on Route 224, the lower left, going from Van Etten up to Keuka. This is in Schuyler County, but it also lops over into southwestern Tompkins County, called Cliffside because of this steep hillside there. That's almost like a cliff. And then beyond that, in the upper right, I guess, is Arnott Forest, which is owned by the Cornell College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. It's a research and educational forest, and very interesting place. And this is turning around, looking over Arnott Forest, back over Cliffside State Forest. Okay, so that's the end of the show. I just had a bell there that told me that was the end of my show. So thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you next week.